Welcome. Make sure you guys are in the right session. It's changing our behavior. And before we get going, we're so happy you guys are here because, it's not fun doing a workshop for no one. And I just want to introduce ourselves first of all. And my name's Stobbe. And real quick, I think my whole experience comes from 23 years of caring for both of my parents that had Alzheimer's. And I have turned that knowledge into a passion that I want to help everybody have a better quality of life. And so I'm pleased to be here. Sonya and I met working on the CMS hand-in-hand training program that was sent to every nursing home in the country. And so we wrote all the content and all the videos for that wonderful program. And this is my co-conspirator, Sonya Barsness.
Hello, everyone. Welcome. My name is Sonya, and I am a gerontologist and a consultant. And this is all I've ever done, really, is working with elders and people living with dementia and those who care for them. And I got my start when I was 11. And I started volunteering in the community I worked at, visiting elders in their homes. And then when I went to college and I realized there was actually a field of study called gerontology, I was quite excited. And the rest is history, I guess. So as Karen had said, we're kind of conspirators, and we're glad to have you all with us today. So thank you. And I'm also a migraine sufferer, so I feel for you migraine people.
There were some of you I think we might have missed, but if you so choose, if you get a migraine, if you have migraines ever in your life, we have 4 specific tables over here just for migraine people.
Yeah, and we just ask that if you don't have migraines, please do not enter the migraine area. And if you do have migraines and you're sitting in the migraine area, please do not leave the migraine area.
Without permission?
Yes.
Without permission, of course, yeah. Mm-hmm. So please obey the rules. We'd appreciate that. Yeah. And, if anybody gets a migraine during this time, we will dim the lights for you. We will make sure that you're as comfortable as possible, but you still have to stay in your area.
We made very special accommodations for people with migraines, and so we want to make sure that we are honoring that. So please honor the boundaries of those people over there, and just let them be. Yes?
What if you don't have a migraine and you want to have one?
Oh. That's a good question.
We could make that happen.
Yeah, we could make that happen for you.
It's on selective, though. I think everyone would have a migraine then,
yeah.
So yeah.
So that being aside, what did you think when you walked up to the door and one of us might have said to you, do you get migraines? What did you feel?
I thought you might want medicine for your migraine.
Yeah, she asked me immediately, do you need medicine? Do you have a migraine? She was like, can I get some caffeine for you? And I was like, no, I want to know about you, if you get migraines.
I felt like my privacy was invaded.
A little invasive, I agree. There was a hand over
Anybody over here, Sonya?
Oh.
I felt defensive. I'm like, why? What do you want?
Yes.
I felt like you care about me.
Oh, nice. Mm-hmm.
Some of the actual migraine people would like to speak about it.
Let me get the code. Okay. I'm in. I saw a hand who was, okay, I'll come right.
I thought it was really weird, but I was also relieved because I do have migraines, and I wondered how you knew by looking at me that I have migraines. I thought it was my glasses.
Over here. Oh.
Okay.
Over here, Sonya.
Migraine hallway is a little difficult to negotiate. Here we go.
I felt like we were going to be used as an example for something.
Any other thoughts? Over here. I'm sorry making you run, but you've got the mic.
Where was it?
Right by Meredith.
Okay. Wait, where's Meredith? I can't see.
Right over there. Okay. I know these lights.
Okay.
I felt like you were either going to take my coffee or that I had this look on my face that was saying I must be in pain.
Oh.
a little bit of a value judgment.
Yep.
I
A little
saw-
paranoia.
Let's see.
That's
Oh,
all right.
I'm gonna go over here since I'm here, and then I'm coming over to you.
I just felt like you were isolating those with migraines and that it wasn't creating an integrated community.
Yes. Interesting. Based on diagnosis.
Based on
alone.
his diagnosis. Yeah, he was sitting there the whole time kind of watching it all happen.
Yeah.
I felt cared for until you told me where I needed to sit. And then I balked the system and said, no, I'm making my own choice on that one.
So she broke out of the migraine area and chose to sit in her own area.
I kind of feel like a lab rat, and everybody in the room knows my diagnosis.
Yeah.
Not that there's nothing to be ashamed of having migraines, but you all know that, oh, that group has migraines.
Right?
Very good point.
Right here in the front, Sonya, and then we'll.
It felt very impersonal, not like how are you, how was your day, but it was just immediately, do you have this? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Right here.
Right here.
Sometimes being late have an advantage because you did not ask me that question. But when I saw the sanctuary and the migraine place and the headache hall, I was like, maybe I can give somebody a massage. And that will relieve the migraine.
Look at all the migraine people's hands.
But that was the
Yeah.
first thing that came up to that
Lovely.
came to my mind, just because I was late and missed the. Do you suffer from migraine?
Yeah.
So there's an advantages to being late.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
Oops.
we didn't ask what you wanted, like some of you said. We didn't say hello. We just said, do you have migraines and where you need to go, right?
Yeah, and a couple of the observations were, and we've done this a couple of times now, and it happened here too, is people, first of all, your facial expressions when we ask this is pretty hysterical, because everyone's like, you get the body language right away closes down, and people were just like, what do you mean? And then it was, do I need to have one right now? Why? And then we've had before people who wanted to sit together, but we separated them. And then they would try to sneak over the migraine boundaries, and we would have to tell them they couldn't. And they would get very angry with us. We've even had people get really upset and refuse to participate.
But when you think about this, and we both have migraines, and that's why we also pick migraines, because we understand and we can relate, and we'd be sitting there. But think about what we do to people who are living with dementia, right? I mean, why is it that those people have to go live behind a closed, locked door when, truthfully, when you think about it, migraine people need the dim lights and the quiet. We need that special area much more. But we do that same thing. We don't even really say, hello, how are you? It's just, that's where you live. That's where you need to go. That's where you need to sit. But it's special. It's migraine place.
Yeah.
It's headache hallway. Yeah. It's special. Yeah. So we need to think about that first of all. And so this session is kind of all about changing our behavior, our thinking, the way we approach certain things. But when you think about it, that if, let's say we had this class, today is Thursday, and we had this class every day. Every day this week we've had it in here, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and every day we ask that question. But on Friday, we didn't ask the question. Where would you sit? Probably at your table. Yeah. Probably at the migraine. We wouldn't even have to say anything anymore. Mm-hmm. You would just go over there. Mm-hmm. Because that's where you were told for 4 days. Mm-hmm. So it's not really a choice. You just think that's where you're supposed to be.
Mm-hmm. And someone had brought it up too about the people who are in the migraine area, the perception by the rest of you. And again, this goes back to changing our behavior, because we send signals, all the time about those people, that are in that area and how they are different. I'm not saying we say they're bad. I mean, sometimes we hear that, those are the crazy people. But we wonder why people who do not have dementia, who are living in our community, see those people as so different, when actually we do create a difference. You know, we create that boundary sometimes.
Mm-hmm. And so, go ahead.
Well, so the question was, in what way are we creating that difference? And I think it's a couple different ways. Just physically, because they're in a different location, often of the building, and they're in a separate area that's usually closed off, and they may or may not have opportunity to kind of mingle with the rest of the people. So I think to the people that are not in that area, it kind of sends a message to them that there is something different about those people that live over there down that way. And people hear things. I mean, my experience is that a lot of times people who live in long-term care communities hear other people talk about those people that live in that area. Yes, so I think we're not intending to do this. We're not being mean. It's just that we inadvertently send these messages about them. Yeah.
And so a few quick things that Sonya and I want to say that we value and we believe, that we know that every person is an individual. And so since every person is an individual, that means every single person with dementia is an individual. And it's worth repeating, even though it's so simple and we know this, but we've got to grind that in our head, how there is no roadmap, there is no cookie cutter way, cookbook, nothing. There is just the fact of getting to know each person.
Yeah, and we see this, we all know this, like Karen said, but then we see it kind of operationalized sometimes, the opposite of this. Like, sometimes I've been in places and I've worked in places where they're like, well, these people with dementia are on the global deterioration scale of 4 to 6, so they have to go to these activities. And then these people are on the, so that is not really thinking of people as individuals, because we're grouping them by their deficits, actually, which if we did that with all of us, that would not make us all feel so great, probably.
Right, and if you look at the stages of dementia, we're all in stage 1 right now.
Yeah.
We are in stage 1 of dementia. And if you read it out loud, and when you look at those stages and you think about somebody that you really know that has dementia, you're going to say, oh, wow, they're in stage 2 and stage 4. They're in stage 3 and stage 7. So that even puts people into these silos of these stages, and that's who they are. That's how you react to this person that's in stage 6. This is what you do for people in that stage. But every person has a right to their best life, no matter what it is, what we think, but it's their best life. That's a still from Live Inside there.
Yeah. And notice we say life, not care, because life is more than care. So everyone, of course, has a right to the best care possible, but we're talking about life.
And to know each person, of course. It is just one of the most important. And even if, like I've said before, that I thought I knew my mom of my 53 years of life, I didn't really know who she was when she was a young girl, when she was a teenager, when she liked to roller skate up and down the mountain roads in West Virginia. So I had to learn more about my own mom in order for me to give better life to her.
Yeah. I mean, how many of you know everything about your parents or spouses? Everything. Of course not. So sometimes we hear things like, oh, my mom only does that, or she doesn't like to do that, or blah, blah, and the reality is that that's a piece of information, but people are so much more complex than we could ever possibly put into a little inventory.
And I used to say that we're no different than people living with dementia, when I realized really that we are no different than them. It's not that they're no different than us. And that I believe that they're acting perfectly normal for their situation. They're acting just the same. They're just trying to really make sense of their world. And I think that's something that we do every single day. It's kind of like, when you go to a conference and you are like, you can see all these people going, you can tell it's the first day of a conference, because they're like, where's registration? What do I do? There's A through B. You have this little adjustment of trying to make sense of this world, of this conference. Where's this room? Where's that room? It says ballroom. Does that mean grand? I don't understand. So, we have this adjustment that goes on.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, we love Dr. Power's definition of dementia. He has reframed the medical definition of dementia to this, which is an experiential definition, which I think if we start from this place, it helps us understand that, is that the dementia is about how someone's experiencing the world. It's not better or worse, or it's just different.
What does that say? Right? So what did you guys just do? You assumed, you filled in the blanks, right? You looked at that and you went, what does that say? That doesn't want to go backwards. What does that say? And your mind went, oh, I get it. Ice cream is good. You just filled in the blanks.
Yeah.
And I really believe that is what we do all the time. You know, if you're driving your car and all of a sudden somebody races past you, you've already filled in the blanks and made up a whole story about that person that just went past you, right? You're filling in these blanks all the time.
Yeah,
and I believe that is just what people with dementia are doing. They're using the information that they have available. You looked at that, you saw, what information do I have? Bam, that's what it is. And they're just doing the same thing. And I think if we start from that place and think, that's it, we're exactly the same, we're just trying to make sense out of our day, it can make a big difference to all of us.
Absolutely. I mean, if I can't remember why I'm somewhere, but someone keeps coming in, and then I notice that my things are not in the place they should be, and maybe even something's missing, a logical assumption would be that that person is stealing my things, right?
So if you went, let's say that you went to this foreign country for a visit, and you didn't speak the language, you couldn't read the signs, nothing. You had no way to tell, and you were staying with a family that is native to that country. And all of a sudden, you saw everyone getting up, going to bed, looked like they were saying goodnights at 7:30. What would you think? What would you do? You'd go to bed at 7:30. Is that what you're saying? Probably, if you're in their home, you probably wouldn't sit up in their living room all by yourself in the dark. You'd probably go to your room, go to your bed at 7:30.
Even if they said to you, well, we go to bed at 7:30. I mean, you're welcome to stay up, but that's what we do.
Right. You would feel pretty awkward.
You would feel weird.
Unless it was like at your house and I could go through your things.
Exactly. Well,
right, no.
Then you'd be rummaging.
And the same idea, if you saw a whole family sitting down in the dining room table waiting for dinner at like 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and they're all sitting there just waiting, hands on their laps, you would probably go sit next to them in your assigned chair, the empty chair at the table, right? And so that's kind of what happens, that when we're doing this same thing, it leads to conditioning. In the sense of, that's what you do now since you're here. And we feel that we're really conditioning people with dementia. Sometimes we're not even aware that we do it. Even the fact of an assigned seat for lunch. I witnessed my mom going into the dining room and looking like she wanted to sit by this gentleman right here, when they literally turned her and said, no, Miss Stobbe, here's your seat right here. Remember, you always sit here. And I thought, why? Why? Is this a special chair? Does it have her name on it? Does it make her extra comfortable? Is there a good reason? But she wasn't allowed to sit over there because for some reason that guy was smiling at her and she really wanted to sit by that guy. And when she did sit here, I watched her do this. I don't know if you can see me, but she scooted her chair and she was sitting backwards, but she was still sitting next to him at his table.
Actually non-compliant. But.
Right? Very non-compliant.
I mean, I think you can extend this to all people that live in long-term care communities, right? Is that we do condition people because, you know, one of the things I do is I go around, I talk to people that live in communities and I do focus groups and ask them questions. And I hear so often things like, well, she doesn't know how it goes here. She hasn't gotten with the program yet.
From the other residents?
From the residents, yeah. And they tell me about how the residents don't know what the routine is yet, but they'll learn.
One of my favorite stories from Dr. Richard Taylor, if any of you have read his books, Living with Alzheimer's Inside Out, just marvelous gentleman who had dementia and passed away a couple years back. But one of my favorite stories from him is that he was actually touring a nursing home, and he stopped by these two older ladies that were sitting at a table, and they were folding baby clothes. And he thought to himself, oh, how nice. It looks like this care community is like donating some baby clothes to a community. Maybe they're sitting here folding them because of that. And he went up and he said, how nice. This is so wonderful. You're folding these baby clothes. Are you donating them to a shelter? And then one lady looked up, looked over at the other lady and said, no. And instead kept folding, okay? Kept folding. And he said, well, what are you doing? She said, wait, should I tell her or you? Should I tell him? And he said, tell me what? And she said, well, and she looked around. You see people living with dementia, right? Looking around and she's going, they make us fold these because they think we enjoy it. And when we fold them all, they take them in the other room, unfold them all, and bring them back. And he said, well, why do you keep doing it? And she kind of laughed and she goes, well, it's better than a poke in the eye. It was like there was nothing else to do. This is just what you do. You sit and fold, you do what they say. And I thought, wow, here are two people that they think don't know what's going on, right? So we believe that people become more of their dementia the more they're conditioned. Now, don't get us wrong. This doesn't just happen in care communities. This happens in adult day. This happens in their own homes, that they're doing what the carer is asking them to do. It happens. They become their dementia more and more.
And when you talk to people living with dementia, especially when I've talked to people who are in their earlier experiences of dementia, their number one fear is losing their self. Yet, people become their dementia because of our behaviors often.
I thought, what wouldn't be a good indicator of how well the person's doing, of how well your care community is doing, depending upon how much suntan lotion you go through? Yeah. I mean, you know what I mean? Because I've entered so many dementia areas that they say they never go outside. Never go outside. And think about it, if you had to buy like a gallon of suntan because you go outside so much with your elders, how awesome would that be? So there's some forms on your table if you need one. Appreciate it, but if you could fill out, there's some little forms there should be. You don't have any forms? Oh, there was a bunch of people at your table before. And let's see, if you got any extra forms, let me know. Pass those around. You may have to find extra forms too, Sonya.
Okay.
There might be more people in here than I had anticipated.
Thank you. All right.
Here's one more.
Poor
Anybody
migraine
else need
people.
some? Over
Poor
here.
migraine people, we
You can
totally-
pass those. Thank you.
Let me get some more. Sorry.
Thank you. Coming at you.
Let me get you guys some more.
Anybody else need
Anybody
one?
have? Yeah, we
Oh.
need some over here. Do you guys have some more?
Coming
Oh, great.
over.
Thank you.
Check any that you feel apply to you in any way.
All right. You guys need some here. If anyone has any extras, let me know. Thank you. I'm sorry. Oh, no. Let me see. I was trying to see if there's any others.
It's not because you're migraine people.
No. We ran out. There's no others.
I made 100.
Okay. There's no more over here.
There's two more. Okay. Perfect. I found two more. Thank you. It's okay.
And I forgot to do the spiel.
Okay.
So I'll just do it at the end.
Yeah.
So that
It's okay.
I have it totally
Yeah, we don't put it up there.
Okay.
We don't want to ruin the element of surprise, but if you give us your card.
Once you finish, I want you to count how many you have.
Okay, right down here. Someone was just asking about getting the PowerPoint. We don't post it because we don't want to ruin the element of surprise. However, if you would like the PowerPoint, just either give us your card or write down your info and we'll send it to you.
So how many of you have more than 4 that you've checked? Okay. How many of you have more than 8? How many of you have more than 10? How many of you have more than 16? How many have more than 20?
I had all of them.
I had all of them too. Because when you really think about it, you might not all have all of them because we're kind of messed up. But when you look at them, I can't sit still. I do get agitated, especially sometimes when somebody tells me that I can't do something or I shouldn't do something. I get a little agitated. Or sometimes when my husband doesn't take trash out, I get a little agitated. He's back there sitting on the ground. I do get anxiety about things. I worry about things, and I shouldn't worry so much, but I do. Sonya, do you get apathetic?
I am, well, yes. I unfortunately do get apathetic, and I'm also very, very, very resistant to waking up in the morning. Like, I'm a terrible waker-upper.
Oh, she's bad.
My husband's like terrified sometimes to wake me up. I occasionally make assumptions, and I guess would have kind of delusions about, I know that my husband takes my car keys sometimes, and I know that he hides them from me.
I sometimes have disinhibition.
Yeah, I've seen that.
Yeah, and sometimes like I'll just act crazy, and not because of alcohol or anything, but because of I just let loose and have fun, and I'm kind of disinhibited.
I mean, sometimes I do have inappropriate sexual behavior because I will flirt with someone like at the grocery store or whatever, and
That's pretty inappropriate.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're a married lady.
I know.
Wandering, I like to walk, and I would have that label of wandering. I would also have hoarding because I'm not really a hoarder, but I would have that label because I once shared with my mother-in-law that I liked these little ceramic pitchers, and I once said that I liked them, so then for a couple of years I got Mother's Day, Christmas, birthday. So it looks like I hoard little ceramic pitchers. So if I was living in your community and walked by and saw somebody else's room had a little ceramic pitcher, I would probably go in and take it because I would think it was mine, part of my hoarding collection. So yeah, and resistance to bathing, waking, yep, me too.
I mean, I tend to, around like 5 or so, I get very tired and I will get irritable,
I want
actually.
some coffee or maybe chocolate. Anybody feel that kind of afternoon? Yeah, well, you're all sundowners.
Yeah.
So when you think about these, that we take these actions that are quite normal, and a lot of us have them, but then we apply them and medicalize them if it's applied to a person with dementia. And that doesn't seem to be very fair.
No, and it causes all sorts of problems, as we'll talk about, in terms of then how we try to respond to them, because they're medical problems.
Right. And so since I like to walk, I would have that aberrant motor behavior and a wanderer.
Sometimes I like to be alone, but I think I'd be labeled as being apathetic, and I probably would be even pushed into many different activities that I may not actually want to go into, and then I might even get more angry.
Yep. And I like to wake up when I want, but I would be agitated and have sleep changes and non-compliant and uncooperative would be one of my lovely labels that I would get, because I don't want to get up when people tell me to get up.
No.
So this is lovely.
So we call this, we, meaning us in the field, call this behavioral and psychological symptoms of dementia. This is the term that we have now landed on to describe what are often sort of normal behaviors for all of us, yet in people with dementia, we do describe them as symptoms, actually, of dementia, which in of itself is a little problematic because although brain changes may result in some of these symptoms maybe happening in a different way than people that have brains without dementia, the brains of people with dementia don't, just by definition, cause people to become wanderers. There's no like brain connection that just literally makes that happen in people with dementia. So it's a little bit not accurate to say symptoms.
So, and what happens a lot of times too is I get family members that come up to me and say, I hear there's an agitated stage, or I hear that that's a symptom of dementia, depression. When is that going to happen? When am I going to expect this? And it's so hard because it's out there. It's on the forums, it's in books, but people think that that's a symptom when it's not. We know the symptoms are memory loss and confusion. And I mean, we know that it's not agitation, but poor family members are getting even so confused, they don't know what the symptoms are either. And so you can see those symptoms of BPSD up there on that screen. And there was a study in 2012 that said 90% of people with dementia have BPSD. 90%. So what percentage of the general population has BPSD? Right?
100.
So 100. So if we've got some of those symptoms, then we have BPSD too, which doesn't make sense if you're looking at it from a medical view.
Absolutely. There we go.
So we'd like to talk about a few other things, and we're going to have some discussion and about some of these and see what you guys think.
So does it look familiar to people? The doors, right? So we see these doors in many of the communities that we work in, and they symbolize something, first of all, right? They symbolize a separate area. It's closed off. There's usually a code pad, all of that. So this is, like we were saying before, kind of another example of how we sort of create these artificial boundaries. But the people who live beyond those doors also know that this is something that, that is different. And Karen and I were in this nursing home, and they had this door into the secured unit area, and there was a woman who was sitting on the other side of the door. And we kept going in and out, with the code. And she basically said to us, that people come in and out of here all day, but we're not allowed to go out there.
And they told us to never mind her because she has, the words they said was extreme dementia. And she would sit there and watch, and this door had a window, so she could see out into the assisted living area. And she wanted to go out, but she was said never allowed out.
Yeah.
And the staff said that's where she sits all day long, all day.
So, I mean, we know that this is a reality in some levels, and we know we're not necessarily taking a stand on integration, not integration, all that right now, but what we're trying to say is that these are symbols that we create, often in our environments, and we have to be mindful of that at the very least, of what this means for the people who are living in these communities and working.
And is this better? We came up with this probably like 10, 12 years ago of covering up those doors so that people with dementia would not think that there's a door there. So is it better to make them think there's a book on the shelf and for them to go up there and try and grab it? Or a plate that they could go up and look at, but it's just this picture on the wall? Or to think that there's flowers right there and it says fresh flowers, for them to go up and want to grab a flower, but it doesn't exist. Does that help a person with dementia? I don't think so.
And to draw the line, with all of these in terms of the real impact is, so I have a friend whose dad just moved into an assisted living community in memory care, and she called me up and was like, I'm just so upset, Daddy, they keep saying he's going to have to leave. And I said, well, what's happening? They said, well, now he's really angry all the time. He's really agitated, and they don't think they can help him. And I said, well, why? What do you think is happening? And she said, well, he keeps trying to leave, and they tell him he can't. And he's just angry, so he's going to have to leave. So whose problem is that? Poor Daddy is just doing what is absolutely normal. He's trying to leave. It's actually abnormal to not leave. It would be abnormal if you guys did not leave this room. That would be abnormal.
And also the idea of when we are using a wheelchair as a restraint. And I know that I've done it before with one of my parents, and I've seen it happen quite a bit. But we put these time restraints on those who are giving the care, and they're looking at their watch and they realize they've got to get Mr. Simpson from his room down to the dining room as quick as possible. And he can walk, but it takes him quite a while. And you'd have to walk with him very slowly. So instead, there's a wheelchair sitting right outside his room. Let me just get you in the wheelchair, Mr. Simpson, and we'll get you to breakfast so quick. But then what happens? He thinks that's what he needs to do. And he might get in the wheelchair again. And again, he sees a wheelchair, and he starts scooting himself around. So we need to be careful of this, because that's, again, how we condition. My mom kept getting a cold. And so whenever she had this cold, I'd come in to see her at this care community, and she was in a wheelchair. And I'm like, why is she in a wheelchair because she has a cold? Oh, well, she's kind of weak, and she sneezes or coughs, and she might fall over. And I was like, no, I'm not buying that one. Let's get her walker out and see if she can use that. And she was just fine. But it was this is what you do. And I don't know who they heard it from or how long it'd been there, but that was the story. So here's my other quick story, that when I was actually going around and looking for a care community, my mom had lived with us for 10 years, and it was starting to get to be a pretty big strain on our family of 3. And we were looking around, and I went to this one community that was gorgeous, just beautiful, and the people seemed so nice. And there was this big door, and you look outside, and they had even made their outside area, it was that kind of rubber tire air like thing, so if you fell, you weren't falling on concrete. It was like this rubber, it was amazing. I'm looking out there, there's flowers, there's little fountain things happening, and I go up to the door to open it, and it's locked. I went, what? And I looked back at the marketing lady, and I said, why is the door locked? I'd love to see she said, we have to keep that locked. And I said, well, I'm sorry, but I don't understand. So people can't go in and out? She said, oh, no. And I said, well, why not? She said, well, this gentleman who had dementia tried to climb the fence, and he got almost halfway over. He was 96, and we caught him. And I'm sitting there thinking at the same time, going, man, if he's 96 and he almost gets over that fence, let him go. Good job, buddy, right? Wow. And I said, wow, well, that's too bad. She said, so now we feel that we have to be with someone when they're out here. And I said, wow, when did this happen? 10 years ago. I'm not kidding. So that's their policy now. Forever and ever, that no one can go outside this beautiful area that's completely safe, completely beautiful, and you can't go out. And while we were standing there talking, 3 different people came up and tried to get out. So what we need to think about changing our behavior and how we think and challenging one another. When I walked back out, there was a CNA who said, I don't know why that is. But they just bought into, well, this is what you do here. And so no one wanted to challenge it. No one wanted to change the status quo of how we do things here.
And that's the definition of an institution, right? Is that you just all do the same things for everybody, and you don't really even question it, because that's just the way we've always done it. And it's this idea of like a blanket policy, which again, it goes back to how you don't really see people with dementia as individuals. I mean, Karen and I have been places where they're like, we're very person-centered here. We're very person-centered. And then we're like, oh, we're going to go talk to the people with dementia. Where is everyone? Oh, everyone takes a nap at 2 o'clock.
You said everyone? Well, we bring them to their room so they have the opportunity to. And I said, do you bring them all the way to their bed? Yes. So, yeah, after how many times of doing that, everybody's going to take a nap at 2 o'clock.
Yep.
So this is the other one that I would like to see tracked, not just in nursing homes, which it is, but in assisted living and adult day, anywhere. I want to know how many people who are not incontinent when they enter become incontinent after they enter. Become incontinent. Because I also believe that they don't. I think that they don't have time to keep on the schedule, or don't have time to make sure to ask each person if they need to go to the restroom, and so the person becomes incontinent. When actually, if they could see a sign somewhere, anywhere in the room, you can't tell where the bathrooms are. And if you're a person that's sitting in the living room enjoying a program and then realize you need to go, and you look around and you can't tell and you don't remember, what are you going to do? You're just going to go. Because you can't get the person's attention. There's only one person in the room that's leading the program. And that's how people become their dementia. They're becoming incontinent. I would love to see those numbers track, because I do believe, and it's sad with my whole heart, that it happens. And then people are told, one person says, oh, well, she's incontinent now. And no one challenges it by trying to make sure to see if she could be on a schedule. They just all go, okay, that's what it is. She's incontinent. So do we really stand in the person's shoes? Do we really listen and ask? I love that quote by Father Greg Boyle, that he says, if you really want to help somebody, we have this tendency that we want to help a situation or help someone, so we look around and we tell them what they need to do. But if you really want to help, you walk up to them and say, what do you need from me? How can I help you? What can I do for you? And wonderful work, if you've ever heard of Homeboy Industries, look it up. It's a wonderful priest that's doing some amazing work.
Yeah, Father Boyle says that one of the things he tries to practice is every person he meets them with the assumption that they know more than he does. And I think that's really beautiful. You know, if we could really practice that, even with people with dementia, you know, that would, I think, change a lot of things for us.
I do too. Want to read this?
Sure. So the next time you communicate with someone who's not at his or her cognitive best, remind yourself of this. This interaction is not about me. This interaction is about someone who is seeking connection on terms that may not advance the interests or needs of my ego. I am going to go where your needs are taking you. I'm going to be with you in that place, wherever and however it is. I'm going to let my ego disappear now. I'm going to love you in your image instead of trying to recreate you in mine. And that's from Michael Verde from Memory Bridge.
Love that quote. And especially the part of letting your ego disappear, because that is like true care, right? When you're letting yourself and everything that your needs, what you think needs to happen, and do what this person needs to have happen.
And, again, I was just going to say quickly, again, we see this a lot, like in the terms that, again, we don't necessarily mean to use these to hurt people, but even the term behavior management, that implies that we are trying to change the other person. You know, so it's in our interests to change their behavior, not theirs.
And so I am, of course, I have BPSD and can't sit still, and so I assume other people may have that issue too. So what I'd like for everybody in this room to do, and some of you have done this exercise with me before, I think, but I'm feeling the need right now. And so the doors, they locked us in, so you can't leave, sorry. But what I'd love for you to do is, I saw everybody come in, so I kind of know who you came in with. So I want you to find someone in this room that you don't know to be your partner. So find somebody in the room. You may have to get up to find them, but find someone in this room to be your partner. Find a partner. I'm sitting too much. I just decided I'm not doing mirrors during our talk. I'm doing it now.
Strikes. You got to go with it.
Yeah. Raise your hand if you need a partner. Do you need a partner? Oh, turn around. Look, there's a partner. You got a partner? Anybody else need a partner? Oh, right here. There's two people in the back. There's a lady in the back. Wait, come this way. Lady, come this way. Come, look. Your eyes met across the room. Right there, right here. She's coming to you. Look at beautiful moment. That was gorgeous. One more partner. Anybody else? Everybody paired up? Don't fib. We'll see you if you're sitting down not doing it. Anybody else? She's coming. Beautiful. All right, so this is what you're going to do. Between you and your partner, first of all, decide who's A, who's B. Decide that. Decide who's A and who's B between you and your partner. Good? I love that moment. I can see all you little personality A types out there going, you're A. And I love all you B personalities. All of you B personalities don't care. You're like, I'll be F for W. Okay, so this is what you're going to do. So do you mind coming up here for just a second so I can just have a partner? Here's the steps up here, or you look like you're about to leap. You scared me. And your name is Cecile? Okay, so Cecile and I are going to show you what you're going to do, and then you're going to do it. So don't do it yet. So if we were partners, we're going to face each other. And a good place to start is like this. You don't have to do it yet. So you put your hands up. So you don't have to touch the new person you just met. Don't worry. You leave a little space. And when Karen, the facilitator, says go, whomever is A in the partnership is going to begin moving, and B follows. So if I did something like this and move my hand, you'd move your hand. Perfect. So I'm leading, and at some point, I might say switch, and then the other person takes over in your partnership. So now you get a lead. And then I might say switch, and it comes back to the other person. And so now I'm leading, right? And so you can move your head, you can move your body. But if you're the person that's leading, like I am, you don't want to do something like, woo, woo, woo. You're not trying to mess up the person or to say, ha, 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 you can't do what I do. Thank you, Cecile.
All right, thank you.
So there's only 3 rules, and Cecile picked up on the first rule right away. The first rule is eye contact. You can only make eye contact with your partner. You can't look at the hands. You can't look behind your partner to see if something funny is happening back there. You can only look at the eyes. Rule number 2, and for some reason, the more south we go, the harder it is. No talking. No talking. Rule number 3, if the person in your partnership that's leading is just having the time of their life, then you should be having the time of your life. Because it's not just about the hands, you're mirroring the whole body. And they might not be having the time of their life by pulling some serious Tai Chi moves on you. Then you need to be serious, okay? You get it? Okay, so everybody get ready, and when it's quiet, I'll say go. All right. Ready? Shh. The A person will be starting. Ready? Go. Watch those eyes. I say switch, not you guys. Switch! Watch those eyes. Switch! Look at the eyes, not the hands. Switch! Oh, that's where we are next. Switch. Switch. Okay, stop. Okay, say goodbye to your partner. Goodbye, partner. You can sit down. That was fun. So no wrong. I would just like to hear, what did you think about that? Any thoughts? So he's saying, hold on. Let's hear what you've got to say. Sonya's coming at you. It started off fun.
It started off fun, then it became a little monotonous.
It became a little monotonous. Who was your partner? I'm kidding. So it became a little monotonous for you, okay? What else?
It was hard not to talk to each other.
Hard not to talk. Yeah, and not look away, too.
I fell in love with my friend, so Carolyn.
You fell in love with your friend?
I fell in love with Carolyn.
Oh,
yeah.
Sweet.
The eye contact.
You have a new friend.
Connection.
Up here.
Let me go over here.
So at first I'm with Chris from Colorado. So at first it's a little bit awkward because we're meeting a new person. But when we mirror our body language, we kind of build a bond and we communicate. And yeah, it's a building relationship. Nice activity.
Thank you.
I appreciate the patience and tolerance of my partner.
Lovely. Good.
It's harder to follow than it is to lead.
How many of you found that? How many of you preferred leading?
Interesting.
How many of you preferred following? Oh, yeah, let me write that down. Go ahead.
I think I learned a lot in a few minutes in personalities because you're naturally going to express what's on the inside of you when you're not talking.
Right? Interesting.
Great point.
Anybody else? Oh, back over here.
Over here?
I loved my partner too.
You loved your partner?
But the thing for me was you didn't ask the question, was it okay to lead and then switch to following? And for me, that was okay. Leading at one point and then following somebody else, which I think is very important in any relationship.
Right? No, I didn't ask you if you wanted to do that or not. You just did it. It's pretty awesome. Yeah. Anybody else? Any thoughts on it? Oh, all the way in the back. Run, Sonya,
I'm coming. I don't think I should run, but I'm going to make
You're
my
a
way
runner.
quickly. Yeah,
you
but
can get your running in for today.
Have you seen my shoes? There's no
I
way.
know. There's only one.
Okay, where was I going?
Right.
Okay.
In the beginning, she asked, did I want to be A or B? And I said no, because if I'm A, that means I have to go first. But I found it kind of difficult to keep eye contact with her. But what made it pleasant is that all while I was following her, she kept this smile on her face. And she showed me that she was enjoying doing what it was that she was doing for me, which influenced me to keep a smile on my face. So we enjoyed doing this together. We hated that it ended.
I'm going to do a breakout session sometime and we'll just do mirrors.
I know.
So I appreciate you guys doing that. Sometimes you got to get up and move. You know, I feel like there is this nerve that's connected from your brain, of the area of your brain that kind of just shuts down. It goes down through your neck, through your spine to right here. And if you sit on that nerve for too long, you can't help it. You just start looking up going, wow, those are weird lights. I gotta start counting them. I wonder how many are in here. Oh, she's saying so. Oh, who cares? Lights. You know, you can't help it. You just can't help it. So if you've ever taken a theater or improv class, you've probably played some form of that. It's just called mirrors. And I love all the things that you guys said, and I always learn more every time that we do it, every time that I do it, anywhere that I do it. But I'll tell you, the three things that I love the most is that eye contact. You guys, and I believe it's kind of the foundation of communication, is that eye contact with another human being. And when you think about the very first time you've ever held a newborn baby, whether it was your baby, your grandbaby, your neighbor brought it home and it's this teeny sweet baby, the first time, what do you look at? Right? You look down at those sweet little eyes and you check the 10 little toes and you look at this sweet baby right in the eyes. And how many, with a raising of your hands, have you been with someone while they're dying? Raise your hand. What are you looking at? Right? We know it's close. We know it's time. They're going to slowly close their eyes or they're going to slowly glaze over. So from the moment we're born to the moment we die, how important that eye contact is to us. And I know it's different in different cultures, but here I grew up with a mother shaking her finger at me, telling me to make eye contact with my elders, and that was anybody who was older than me. And that, you know what? You need to close your mouth, because what? You might learn something. So I love that eye contact. I also love that give and take. As she said, we didn't ask if you wanted to switch back and forth. No, you didn't even think twice. When I said switch, you just started following your partner. And it went back and forth. I mean, you could have stopped and said, oh no, we don't do those moves here in Atlanta. Sorry, I'm not doing them. You need some paperwork. Triplicate, I don't do that. But you didn't. You didn't say no in any way. You said yes, and you gave yourself over, and you did it. Perfectly clean and clear. And there was some of you who I totally saw were having this goofiness, and you got goofier and goofier. There was a couple of you who were completely teamed up well because you were so afraid of how to move. And then you started listening, and it doesn't matter. It can be done however you want. The last thing that I really love is this. You guys are going to be here for a couple of days, and maybe you drove here. And maybe on, what is today, Saturday, you get in your car to drive home. And you get in your car and you're like, oh, I better stop and get gas before I get in traffic. And so you go to the gas station and you stop, and you're standing over there at pump number 2 and you're filling up your tank, and you look over, the person over at pump 10 was the person who was just now your partner. And then you're kind of embarrassed, so you just get like 2 gallons and then drive away. But I believe this. You may not remember their name by that day, but you and they made a connection. You made a connection with another human being. You let go of yourself and just focused on that other person, and it was only for 90 seconds. I timed you. 1 minute and 30 seconds. Felt a little longer, huh? Yeah, there's usually somebody at about a minute who's looking for me going, oh my God, where is she? We have been doing this for like 5, oh no, she said switch. I got no more moves. So think about that. 1 minute and 30 seconds to make a connection, to let that ego disappear. When that switch was called, you let the other person take over. It might have been hard, but in 90 seconds you learned how to do it. And you made this connection. And that's important, to slowly make these little connections. Now you're going to see this person all over the conference the next few days. Make sure you connect with them again and again. Or at least, do a little of this. So I appreciate you. Sometimes you got to get up and move a little bit, but also that 90 seconds is really important. Now, what I want you to do is this.
When you hear the word behavior, what comes to mind? You can just yell it out. What are something? Negativity, cursing, spitting, inappropriate, agitated, anxious, acting up.
Funny. We had a funny up here.
Funny. Impulsive, crying.
Laughing. So sometimes what happens is these are the ones that we hear out there, or you will see these words on the cover of papers and books and talks about challenging behaviors, and it's difficult and they're bad and they're inappropriate, and we need to manage them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and yet
what happened?
I don't know.
That was weird. Just kicking.
Just kicking. That's all. Thank you. Okay.
But the list can go on forever of kicking, hitting, wandering, hoarding, slamming, stomping, won't eat their food, spits out their food. It can go on and forever. But we have this tendency, right?
Yeah. That's what we think of. And typically when we ask this question related to people with dementia, we don't think of these things typically. We don't think of the other things, which some of you guys did identify, but it's not something that we often, when you hear the word behavior, we're usually not managing the behavior of people that are smiling, right?
But what would happen if we thought of the word behavior and these were the words we thought of right away? What would happen for our mindset, for that individual, for that group of people? What would happen if that was our first thought? But it's kind of got to this point where we just don't think of it that way. And so Sonya and I have started to really not use the word behavior unless it's related to us and think of it as actions, reactions. Because that's what's happening a lot, is the person with dementia is just reacting to our poor behavior.
And the challenge with just saying these are behaviors of people with dementia is then the next step in our mind is to say, well, that's just what people with dementia do. That's just the behaviors they have, right? That's what happens. And then we don't try to understand what could be happening, what they're trying to tell us, why. And if we don't try to understand why, then we just find Band-Aids to try to stop them from doing that.
And they're not bad Band-Aids. They're really good Band-Aids. They're pretty tough and wonderful. And if you're using any of them as Band-Aids, though, they're not right. We have to figure out the why. It could be aromatherapy, it could be music, it could be painting or art, it could be exercise. But if you're using that as a Band-Aid to the action or reaction of a person, then it won't work. You're going to have to keep putting on Band-Aids over and over and over again.
And the research, this is again where this paradigm extends way far, right? Because the research on non-pharmacological interventions with people with dementia, and I'm using air quotes, it's inconclusive. They say, well, it doesn't really work. Well, part of the reason is that the research projects are typically something like you take a group of people with dementia and you give them lavender therapy, and then you compare them to a group of people that don't have lavender therapy, and then they say, well, it didn't really help their agitation. And we don't actually know why people are upset in the first place. We're just giving everyone lavender. And that may not be what they like.
Right. So if behavior is a form of communication, behavior is an expression of need, behaviors equal actions and reactions. Mm-hmm. So the biggest thing also is to always think of is, I would say, well, who's it hurting, this action or reaction? Whose problem is it? Number one. Most of the time it's our problem. They're really not having a problem and no one else around them is. If Mr. Jones likes to sit and shred napkins, really, what's that hurting? Mm-hmm. Go buy more napkins. If it makes him happy, let him shred napkins. And is it a matter of health and safety? So if we think about anything in that way first, then we may not have to do anything. We may not have to put any Band-Aids or worry about it at all.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And of course, everything we learn is from people living with dementia. And so Christine Bryden is a person living with dementia, and she herself, has taught us that basically if the environment around her is focused on her needs, if the care environment is focused on the needs of people living with dementia, that there probably aren't going to be challenging behaviors because people are having their needs met. And
this is your quote
here. Okay, yes. So, when we talk about BPSD and we're talking about this whole medicalization, the problem with this is that if we see it as a medical problem, of course, we're only going to look at it as medical solutions. And that's kind of the challenge we have right now with antipsychotics, is that if these are medical problems, of course, we're going to try to find a medication to solve them, right? But if they're actually not medical problems, medications are not going to help.
And so one of the things people always say, well, what can you do? Well, one thing we always say is don't pick up the phone. And what we mean by that is, if you call and you say to a doctor, so-and-so needs this medication because of their behaviors, he's going to prescribe it. That's his job. He thinks you have done everything you could to not get to that place. So you need to, before you pick up that phone, think, have I done everything I could? Have we really looked at the why behind any of these actions and reactions to try and figure them out? Or have we just kind of said and put Band-Aids out and it's not working? Oh, here's your research.
I mean, there's always, a lot of times people say to me, there's no research to support these things. There actually is. And there is research that does support that generally what we see as behaviors is a disconnect between what people need and what they're not getting. Research supports this. So it's not just something that we say here, at the Eden Alternative, right? This is something you can say to people, no, really, they have researched this.
So if you had somebody walk into your room in your home and they walked over to you and said, Sonya, it's time to get up. And they open up the drapes and I say, it's time to get up.
I probably would reach in my drawer to get my mace, because
and then
some stranger walks in your bedroom.
I would even take your blankets off.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I'd definitely hit you.
You hit me?
It's so cold in the morning. It's terrible. It's a terrible feeling.
And so we wonder why sometimes that you'll see an incident report about someone that is hitting, agitated, upset, because how would you react? It's quite normal for someone, if they don't remember who you are and you're coming in to wake them up, for them to react in this manner. And we need to really be aware of sometimes these incident reports don't give the full story. It says, I don't know why, but she just started hitting me. And we don't say what happened before. And we can change this. The staff doesn't understand. They are under a lot of pressure. They're told to hurry. But this is all normal for anybody to behave like this when you're being woken up. And you don't want to get up. So there's some Post-it notes on your table, and you can let us know if you don't have enough, but each of you get 3. 1, 2, 3, just like that. So I don't know whose is whose, but I'm just going to read off some from this side here. And these are 3 things that you would not compromise on in the whole world. So 3 things. I see your cats. You want to shower every day in the AM. I want freedom to make my own decisions. I want my eating what I want when I want. My pets, brushing my teeth before bed. I'm not sure if she wants it or doesn't want it. I'm going to assume wants it. I want to go outside whenever I want. I want access to the outdoors. I want delicious home-cooked meals. I want a shower, not a bath, every day. I enjoy these 2 here. Very large on the Post-it note, it says wine. And I'm kind of almost thinking these could be together. Pajamas with no bra. I want Wi-Fi. I want sleeping nude. I want to be able to drive as long as I can. I want to wear sweatpants. I don't want to go to bed early. I want to be spoken to like an adult. I want good coffee, not just coffee, good coffee.
Yeah.
Sonya, what do you got over there?
I need pizza multiple times a week. And I'm imagining like good pizza, not just, frozen types of pizza. I want to cook for friends. I need my Netflix. Don't wake me up before 10 a.m. I want to stay up late and watch TV at night. Respect my privacy, cell phone. I want time outside. I want my room to face the outdoors and have a view. I want coffee throughout the day. I do not play bingo, do not ask me.
Please don't touch me without washing your hands. I want showers, having my personal hair products. I want to sleep in. I want my dog. I want unsweetened tea, must have in the morning. I want my privacy. I want wine. I want my family and friends being able to watch Westerns almost daily. Sleeping late, eating when hungry. I want to get up at 7 a.m. or 8 a.m. Alone time, meal times and snacks. Here's one. I enjoy beer. He added an S, she. So these aren't big things. These aren't like, don't let me fall. Do you know what I mean? These aren't things that are like, make sure that my health is great. Make sure that there's a lot of privacy. And when you think about how much it's all like, let's go, everybody, come on, let's do this. How much do we allow for that person to have privacy? How much are we asking our people who move into our care communities the right questions to know what they need or want the most? And when you think about this, we say don't sweat the small stuff. This is the small stuff. The small stuff's what make our life. That small stuff is what makes us who we are and makes our day joyful. And it's always evident when you leave home. So how many of you staying in this hotel? Okay, so whenever I stay in a hotel, it's always about the pillows, right? Because I don't know about you, but through my lifetime, I think I've probably bought over like 50 pillows trying to find the pillow. And so you're like smushing a pillow trying to get it. You're putting one here under you can't get it right. That little weird skinny one, what that's for, I don't know. I tried it, don't know where it should go. So, but the bed, the pillow, it's such a small thing, but it's so important. And we think about this stuff, that what if somebody has a Diet Pepsi every morning of their adult life, but you're bringing out coffee? And how important that is to start their day off with what makes them feel good. What if every day they had it out of their same cup, and that was their cup? You know the feeling, right? You walk in your kitchen, don't you pull out your mug? Most of us do, right? And then, if someone's staying at your house, a friend or something, and you walk down after they've gotten up and they're drinking out of your mug, it almost paralyzes you. You're like, you got my, you have to drink out of another mug that you normally give to other people. But this is what makes your day, makes you feel good. And, it is these things to me that give us purpose, that make our life good. It's kind of what Ann said this morning about meaningful. I feel like purpose is a huge, huge thing. That I really do feel that, because there's different things for different people that give you purpose. But I really do feel that purpose is like this huge need that we're not thinking about. And that it can really change behavior. It can really change how a person looks out on their life that day. Person living with dementia that has those familiar things. Mom always had the same mug, so we sent that mug with her. And she recognized that as her mug. And so, and Sonya, you have this beautiful story.
Yeah, so, I think it occurred to me at some point that, what gave people purpose earlier in their life may not give them purpose anymore. And it goes back to how do you really know someone? And I had, there was a gentleman living in the community I worked, his name is Mr. N. And his daughter told us that he used to love to sweep the stoop. That's what he used to do every morning, when he was at home. And so he was kind of restless, so we thought, well, let's see if he wants to sweep the courtyard. So I said, Mr. N, can you do me a favor? Can you please sweep this? We need you. And he was like, yes, darling, of course. So every day he would go out there and sweep and sweep and sweep, right? And this happened every day. He didn't know what to do in the morning. He was looking for something to do. I'd say, oh, Mr. N, please help. Will you sweep the courtyard? And after, it was, I think, several months, he came up to me one day and he said, darling, I don't know what type of operation you're running here, but I really think you need more help because I really don't want to sweep this. And here we were for months, making this poor man sweep our courtyard. And why was he doing it? Not for him. He was doing it because we asked him, And
it's the same with folding the baby clothes. Bearing a stick in the eye,
Bearing the stick in the eye.
Yeah.
So, it is about this idea of it's bigger than care. It's bigger than even people's life history and interests. It's about what gives people pleasure in that moment sometimes. And it's not an active thing. Sometimes it's just paying attention, right, as to what gives people pleasure and noting what does and what doesn't. Because sometimes you learn pretty quickly what people don't like, right, just by being around them and being with them.
And yeah, so basically we know we're the ones that need to change our behavior. That it's not about them changing their behavior or us managing it or anything of that nature. We're the ones that need to look at how can we change ours. And of course, my mom had a magnet on the fridge, always growing up, saying insanity's doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. And that's what we tend to do. We keep putting these Band-Aid, 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 but we don't find why is she saying, I want to go home. Why is this happening?
Absolutely.
So we're going to just quick go over the whys of actions and talk about that a little bit. And did you want to do this first or have like a little brainstorm?
I guess go through this first,
Okay.
I think, right? Yeah.
So it could be the why of actions, and let's just use an example like the person's refusing to take a bath or shower, okay? And so if you look at these reasons here, the person might be in pain because of a bruise, or maybe you're taking a shower and the person sits in a shower chair and they have a large bruise that you don't know about and they don't want to get out of their clothes and go in that shower because it's painful. It might be just even a B12 deficiency of why any kind of change in actions and reactions may happen.
Pain, we know, is a huge factor that people can't often tell us they're in pain. And so many times I think that's the reason why people tell us in other ways that they don't want to do something.
Communication.
Yeah.
It could be so many of these different things in communication of why a person. They may not be understanding you. You may not be looking at them when you're speaking. It might be that their understanding of what you're saying has dropped and that they are not comprehending. So there's so many different things. Patience is a huge one. I've seen so many people that you can feel it, right? When someone's losing their patience. You can feel it. And people with dementia can feel that. And when you're starting to lose their patience, their anxiety and agitation level just goes up, or they'll just walk away. Just done with you. Bye-bye.
And I think it's like lack of communication sometimes, because I remember there was a person with dementia who didn't want to go into the whirlpool tub, and our strategy was just not to talk about it and just to kind of lead him in there, and then magically he would end up in the tub, which of course is a great strategy, right? And he, of course, did not want to do it, was very upset, became very upset with us. And then we realized that he was thinking that he told us that we were going to cook him in that pot. So, we weren't explaining anything about this situation, which, by the way, is abnormal. We know those whirlpool baths are not normal
Scary.
looking in any way, shape, or form.
They look like spaceships, some of them.
Exactly.
So it could be the task at hand, that it's too hard for the person, it's inappropriate, maybe they have, it's not communicated, it's unfamiliar, and when you relate that to taking a bath, it could be that you're not giving them enough independence, that the task itself is you're not letting them have the washcloth and wash themselves, you're doing it all to them instead of them just assisting them. So it could be the task at hand, that they want to do more of the task and not less.
It could be so many things in the environment, that are causing someone, in this case, not to want to take a bath or shower. How many of you in the morning when your bathroom's cold, like you just don't even want to get into you're just like, oh, I just want to stay in bed, right? There's so many different things about the environment in long-term care especially, and from the noise to the feeling that you get when someone walks in your room and they don't really want to help you with the shower, and you kind of quickly realize that right away. I mean, that's a part of the environment as well.
Or when you look in that big giant tub thing and it doesn't look like there's a bottom.
Yeah.
And I don't want to get in when I can't see that they don't put like a dark blue bath mat in there so that I know there's a bottom to this tub. or the fact that maybe you slipped and almost fell with another care CNA 2 weeks ago, but that feeling is still in your mind, so you don't want to take a bath or shower now because you're so scared you're going to fall.
Maybe you have to go all the way down the hallway to get to the room where there's the bathroom. And even if you're covered up, there's something still really weird being covered up, naked, going down a strange hallway.
So then we have the domains of well-being from our friends here at Eden. And when you think about that, it could be any one of these why you might see a change in the person's actions and reactions. One of the big ones is that autonomy. That when you start taking that freedom, that choice away from people, you're going to see two types of people. You're going to see, like my 93-year-old mom, who might have just gone, and it's like you're pushing her down. And she'll just, okay, I'll do what you tell me. Okay, that's all right. I'm sorry. I shouldn't do that. Or you'll get the person that I'm going to be, like when I move in your place, and be like, really? You're telling me I can't leave this room? I see 6 doors right now. And I can run pretty fast. Yeah. So there's two different types of people. When you take away their freedom and their choice, you're going to see that happen. But what we've seen, sadly, is a lot of times that second type of person slowly becomes the first because they give up, because they start going with all the other people that are in the room, with everybody telling them and seeing what we're supposed to do. Sit down for dinner at 3:30, go to bed at 7:30. That type of actions, it just gets ground in.
Yeah, we're actually, tomorrow we're going to be talking with Al Power more in detail about kind of the well-being approach, and it is a totally different way because it's not as much the reactive approach in which that you kind of wait for an action or reaction to happen and then you address it. I mean, theoretically, the idea is that if someone has their needs met of well-being, that they're going to not need to show us in other ways because their needs are being met already.
So it could be their life story. And this is one that sometimes we don't think about either. And that's why it's so important to keep gathering information as you go. Somebody may not know some little detail. So like about me, there's a lovely booth out there. I don't know if y'all saw the booth that they called it like live art. That's the birds, right? And the beautiful little birds in there. So I have an irrational fear of birds. Very irrational. I believe sometimes that they follow me. I believe sometimes, Sonya and I have pulled into a hotel, and there have been hundreds of birds on the roof of the hotel. I believe that they're following me. Okay, I know, it's irrational.
Of course, I've arranged that, but
So if I end up living in your care community, and you're like, gosh, Mrs. Stobbe is kind of a little bit upset today, I'm gonna go wheel her in front of the birds. If you didn't know that about me, right, that might seem like a good idea. But you don't do that to me because you will see me go over the top. But that's part of my life story. I've always had this. There's no, I didn't see the movie Birds, and I don't know how, why it came, but it did. And it is something, but all of us probably have something about ourselves. We probably have that little secret maybe that people don't know. And, it could be something that's way back in our life that was a trauma moment. It might have been a beautiful, wonderful moment. It might be the fact that this person was a rural postman for so many years of his life. And what he loves to do is to go around and pass out mail. And if there's any way you can help fulfill that for that gentleman, because it's what he still would love to do. He doesn't want to play bingo. He doesn't want to paint. He doesn't want to do anything else but pass out mail. Is there any way you can have him help the person pass out mail? It's those kind of things to find that perfect life story moment for them.
Yeah, so I don't know if any of you wear contacts here. Anybody wear contacts? So if I have dementia and you are bathing me, it's very likely that when you're helping me with a shower and the water gets near my eyes, I'm going to freak out. Because for anyone that wears contacts, you know that automatically, you can't let water get into your eyes, right? So there's so many things like that we just are not going to know about people, but we have to pay attention to and not assume that this is the dementia that's causing them automatically to not. People say to me all the time, why is it that people with dementia don't like baths? There's nothing really in the brain that I'm aware of that causes that. It likely is something else external.
And so, of course, does it happen at the same time of the day? Does it happen for the same person? Because it could be you, right? And it could be you in a good or bad way.
Yeah.
Does it happen in the same place? Now that's a scary bathroom. I just Googled bathroom in nursing home. That's scary.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to go in there.
It's not warm.
And are there patterns to your reports? Do you look at your incident reports? Because once that report's written, do you go back to it and see what are the patterns that are happening? What kind of training do I need to do? Because most likely what you're seeing are reactions to our poor behavior. The reactions are written down in the incident report that this person spit, hit, kick, whatever, and really look at it and train your staff to realize what did they do right before? What happened right before?
And to add to that too, to be clear, what we're not saying is that we want to demonize the people that are caring for people with dementia to be like, you're doing it wrong, right? I mean, that's not what we're saying. I think that in the culture of learning, what we're trying to constantly do is do better, right? But that sometimes means putting our ego aside and recognizing that we are a part of the problem. And I think that's part of the culture you're building is like, it's not effective if you're looking at incident reports and you see that Karen, consistently, the people that she's working with are upset when she gives them a bath, to be like, Karen, don't do that. Because there are so many things that could be happening in Karen's world, and we've heard this too, is we'll ask people what's happening, and then the CNA will say to us, well, the reason why, Mrs. So-and-so is so upset is because I have to shower 15 people before 6:30 a.m. every day. And so that's a good reason, actually, of why she's rushing people through this. And so it is this whole bigger picture, like everything is, right, about listening and really trying to create this environment where it's okay if sometimes we do things that are not right.
Yeah.
We learn from it, and we do better.
Man, yeah, I mess up all the time.
Yeah, constantly.
So I love that Ann brought up the what if idea, because we think of that what if all the time. We think what if, and this what if.
Yeah. I mean, what if instead of care plans, we had living plans where it wasn't that the person is not getting the care they need in terms of their ADLs, but that is not the primary goal. What if the primary goal was living, and then the services and supports that we provide for people are actually secondary to that living? Does that make sense? I mean, it's a totally different way of thinking about it. Like, it goes back to what are those three things? What are the things that are important to people? What does living mean to this person? And then we provide what they need so that they can achieve that.
What if?
What if?
That'd be interesting. Because we can do better.
We can do better.
And it's up to us to give more time to anybody that needs to have any interaction with persons that are living with dementia.
It's up for us to not pick up the phone if we have people that we don't know what to do, to ask for the medication or ask for the psych consult or whatever it is, to really, really try to understand what that person is telling us.
It's up to us to give permission, and I say this because we shouldn't, have to give permission, but in this culture, a lot of times staff is waiting for us to give permission to say, please sit down. It's okay to have a moment to sit down and to visit and have eye-to-eye contact at the same level as the person that you're caring for. Yes, please talk and sing while you're doing baths. Please. And so it's not as much permission, but making sure they know. We assume too much. We need to make sure that everything's clear, because there's some steps that are getting missed on those steps down to the person that actually gives care.
Yep, absolutely. And communication is really an important part. So like all of these things in culture change, right, it's about systems and how we actually make things happen in reality. And communication is probably one of the biggest foundational things we have to have, because if you know all about Karen and you know that she hates birds, but you don't tell anyone, and then your coworker goes the next day and wheels her to the aviary, that's a communication fail, right? And then we know this stuff happens all the time, but it's really, really important that we think about that too, like the bigger systems of how to actually make this happen in reality.
And how are you communicating it? Make sure you communicate it to everybody, and whether it's through email, a communication book, make sure it's out there. It's one of the biggest system failures sometimes that happens. And huddles are great, but are you just having a huddle with your management, and then how does the information get to the folks that deliver the care? And are you having a huddle then with them? Or are you huddling all together? How is that working? Is it getting to the people that need the information?
And how are you getting the information from the people that have it that may not traditionally be in these meetings? So how are you getting info from the housekeepers, and people that are working in maintenance that also are key, right? They know everything. We all know that, right? Like, they know everything. So how are we getting the information from them and making sure that it's shared with everybody?
And one of the biggest, for anybody in this room, you are a leader. You are here at this conference, you are a leader of some sort. And you can come up to me and say, well, I'm really just a CNA. No one is just a CNA. You are a leader because somebody is watching what you do. And you need to model the behavior. Because everybody, that is one of the biggest things. I don't know about you guys, but if you do any talks and you walk in and someone hires you to come into their beautiful care community, and the CEO and the DON, they announce you and introduce you, and then they walk out. I might as well just leave, because no one's listening to me. Because they're like, oh, this isn't important, they just left. You know what you say. Maybe it's going to touch one or two people, but most of the room is going, well, they don't need to hear it. Why do I need to hear it? So you need to really model the behavior, model what you need for them to carry through.
Absolutely. And one of the things that we learned with Hand in Hand was how much information leaders received from being a part of those conversations. That they thought they knew, but then when they heard their team talk about some of these tough issues, they were like, oh, I didn't know that was happening.
Well, their perception was that everybody knew. So I want to, we're going to give out a question to all of you, but before I do, I want to end my sticky story real quick, this Post-it note story. I did this, I've been doing this for many years now, but I did this about 6 years ago, and at this national conference, and there was an administrator from a little bitty family-owned place up in Washington State. And I saw him like 2 years after that, and we were on one of those escalators where one's going up, one's going down, and he's like, hey, I need to talk to you. Meet me at the coffee break. And I'm like, oh, okay. I didn't know who he was. I didn't recognize him. So I went and met him at the coffee break, and he goes, hey, I did your sticky note thing after I got back home with all my staff. And we did it together, and we put it up in the staff room and said, what are we compromising? What are our elders compromising on? And we put all of our sticky notes up. And I'm like, okay, great, good. And he goes, wait, there's more. He said 2 weeks after that, his director of nursing was in a car accident. And where did she come for rehab? Back to her own place. And here's this young administrator giving some of her charts with her handwriting, trying to find her 3 sticky notes. He's reading a chart and trying to find which one were hers because they were all mixed up. And they were going, no, that's almost the L's not right in that one. They found the 3 sticky notes. So when she got wheeled into her own home, there was her cat on the bed. There was a little refrigerator of Diet Pepsi on the side of her bed. And there was a fan, because she always has to sleep with a fan. And they all went, blah! But she said how meaningful it was, that it felt like, even though it was her own place, that you guys knew her, that you were prepared for her. And she felt so much more at home. And I thought, how awesome is that we can follow that through and make sure, what would our elders say? Could you ask that question? What are 3 things that you need? So what's the question you'd like to pose?
So I think what we'd like to do is to have you guys take a few moments at your tables and think about, when you go back to your lives now, what are some ways that you can change your behavior, tangible things that you can do so that people with dementia that you support, their lives are worth living? What are some things you can do to change your behavior?
Give it for an example.
Like, if it's simply like, maybe you would say, every day I'm going to take 15 minutes and sit down with a different person and just hang out with them, no agenda. Something like that. Whatever it is.
So
what are
discuss
some,
at your table with each
discuss
other?
it, yeah, discuss at your tables, and then we'll kind of come back, and if anyone wants to share, what are some things they're going to do to change their behavior?
Cool. Great. Please share.
Hey, who would like to share some of the things they're going to do to change their behavior? Anybody? We'd love to hear. Or whatever you're talking about.
Back here. Oh, first over there, then back here.
We said we can have like a better approach dealing with behavior
What was that,
issues.
Sonya? Better approach?
A better approach.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you. Excellent. That's a great way.
And then over here.
Raise your hand again so I can, okay.
There's one there and then one.
I'm not quick enough.
Don't look in the light.
I know. I'm getting blinded too, so yeah.
I think whenever our elders, upon admission, instead of getting so caught up with the paperwork, we'll ask them, what are 3 things that you need? And maybe even do the sticky note thing with them. Instead of saying, sign here, send your check here. Make sure you put this in our name.
That's great. Thank you. Great idea. Over here.
We just talked about the difference between the ideas you're presenting, which we're fully supportive of, and the real life staffing issues in the places where we work, and whether you have any thoughts about just that rubber hits the road type of reality.
Do you have a specific situation or something?
I mean, I could every day, and the time that's so much a part of what you're doing, and what needs to happen in the end of the day saves you time. Of course, we all know that, but for some reason it's very hard to help shift a group toward the behaviors you're trying to do for lack of time, and I'm curious.
One thing that's really cool to know is that in the hand-in-hand training, we did 2 different clips. One, we kind of called them, I was thinking of them as we wrote them as Goofus and Gallant. So if y'all go back to the highlights, anybody who I loved highlights. But you think of it as like the good morning, the bad morning. And the bad morning, the CNA was told to hurry. She had a bunch of people that she had to get up. She was trying to hurry the person. The person was getting flustered and a little upset. She was telling her to do this, telling her to do that. She left the room, came back in. She hadn't done anything because, of course, she forgot. The other one, she took her time. Everything was said as you could feel that they had a relationship. In other words, they both were the exact amount of time. The exact. But the outcome for the first one, she got back in bed. After being woken up, gotten up, told what to put on, then the CNA left to go help somebody else, and she was looking around and went, oh, I'm tired, I'm gonna get back in bed. The second one ended, so then that CNA is gonna have to come back and start all over again. That second one ended with the 2 of them laughing and her assisting her with getting her pajamas off and smelling the pancakes that were cooking for breakfast. So the outcomes were so completely different, opposite, but the time it took was exactly the same. And that's something that is really hard to think about, but when you realize that you're saving time, you're actually saving time by doing it the good way.
Yeah, absolutely. And 2 other things to add to that are, it's complex, first of all, right? Like this is none of this, it's what we're saying in some ways is simple, yet the actual reality of it is complex. So there's different ways to crack this egg, right? And I think that's a part of it, is like trying lots of different things. So, looking at this from an educational standpoint, I think that's a really good tool. Another thing I've tried is having learning circles with teams and asking them what it means to care for someone. Because what sometimes comes out is that people have been taught over time that caring for someone means taking care of their ADLs, number 1. And when you have that conversation and you're actually allowing each other to kind of talk about more broadly what that means, it kind of changes the way you think of time. Because if your goal is not necessarily that everyone has to get showered in a certain time or blah, blah, that sometimes that changes people's perceptions of time. The other thing I think is also looking at really like time schedules and how things operate, because sometimes when I hear people say, oh, we don't have time for that, it's true, because when you're in a really rigid schedule where everyone has to be up at a certain time and go to breakfast at a certain time, that is not realistic to do, actually, in a good way. So I think all of that kind of does have to be discussed and talked about. And one of the great things about Hand in Hand, I know I'm plugging it, is that it does open up these conversations in like a really tangible way that you can have with your team about, is this actually a reality and why or why not? So hopefully that helps a little bit, but it is difficult to make this happen, right? And I think that's, sometimes we say just like to take one little piece of it and then to try that and just get good at that.
Baby steps.
Yeah.
Baby steps. Right
over here.
Right here.
Yep.
So what we try to educate our care partners on is that every single interaction, so every minute that you spend with that person, it is not about the time, it's not about the ADL. We know exactly what needs to happen for the ADLs. That's why we have a living plan. The thing that need to happen is it have to have purpose for the person, purpose for me, and it have to be meaningful for the both of us.
Great, thank
Nice.
you. That's excellent, thanks.
Lovely.
Anyone else want to share their, over here, I'm going to come back there.
We'll get
Okay.
one more and then we'll.
Yes, yes, yes. I'm making my way, I'm making my way. All right.
Get me out. Oh my God. Okay, well, my situation is getting along with coworkers as far as communication about the resident, finding out why do they have different behaviors when I come back from my 2.5 days, and I'm like, oh my God, I got to start all over again, and finding out what's the problem. And really, truly in this book, I'm going to take these techniques back with me, and I'm going to, kind of communicate with the coworkers, the ones that work on the days that I'm off, and find out, let's come together on this, and then I'll let them know, if it's okay with them, well, she don't like you doing it this way. She doesn't like, he doesn't like you, to approach him like that. Let him know what you're coming for. Knock on the door, and you give him privacy, in bathroom time.
That's great.
Whatever, and so I hope I'll be able to carry the message, and thank y'all very much.
Thank you.
Well, and
Thank
try
you
and
for
flip
saying
it.
that.
That's so good. And try and flip it.
Yeah.
And they'll take your advice a little bit better if you say, how about if you try it this way instead of they don't like that. Try it. What do they like?
Yeah.
So try and always flip it over to the positive. But you know what? What can happen, right? So that's great. That is so great that you're going to do that and go. So she's going to go back and communicate with her other coworkers,
Yeah.
and give some ideas. That's
Yeah, I love the fact
wonderful.
you're taking like that on your own, and you're going to be the leader to do that. And I think that's really, really important. That's key, is like we have to be the change we want to see, right?
Okay, so I think we're at the end of our session here, and we so appreciate you guys' attention and sticking with us for these 2 hours.
And thank you for the migraine people.
Migraine people, yes. Migraine people. Oh, migraine people. Yay, migraine people. Oh. So we just want to send you off. Before you go, we have to give you codes and things like that, but also just send you off with the idea that no matter where you are, you can do better. It can be better. Mm-hmm. And that from that silly exercise that we played, that somebody might need that 90 seconds from you. Who is it? Is it a resident? Is it your boss? Is it a coworker? Is it a family member? Who needs that undivided focus of 90 seconds from you? And if you want the PowerPoint, make sure you come up and give a card to us, and we'll make sure it gets to you. And Molly
is going to.
She'll give you the codes.
Yes, so thank you, Karen and Sonya. Thank you so much. So I have, if you are a nurse and need one of these evaluation forms, please come and see me and I'll give you that. And the CE code is perspective. Perspective.
That's a word.
Mm-hmm. And
anything else you need to?
That's it. And just hold your evaluations and give them to the registration desk at the end of the conference.
And we're going to lunch.
And we're going to lunch.
Bye-bye. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Molly.